Hello everybody. Every year, snow removal contractors and the general public wonder what the winter will be like in their area this year. We want to show you a look under the hood at some of the things involved in making a winter outlook. This knowledge can better help you prepare for the snowy season ahead.
At Neo Weather, we help clients in the snow industry stay informed and ahead of Mother Nature. We're going to look at some of the ocean and atmospheric patterns that give us clues into how the long-range forecast will develop. Pressure and temperature differences in different spots across the world have a very specific effect right here in North America. Long-range meteorology is a lot more than hocus pocus, and a very good Halloween movie, by the way.
It is a good movie, good point. We're also going to dive behind the scenes and give you some insider information on what went into creating the forecast for this year. Last year, temperatures were up and down, and there were some sustained periods of both warm and cold air throughout the country.
Yeah, snow contractors in the Midwest and the East really had a battle with snow all the way well into April, and that really pushed back the landscaping season for many as well. Let's take a look at some of the different weather players to spotlight who has better risks of colder and snowier weather, or maybe even warmer and drier this winter. What better way to get into the winter forecast than talk about snow? The long-range model's already indicating a decent snowpack across Canada, a little earlier than normal, isn't it?
It is a little earlier than normal, yes. We're already seeing some snow developing in the northern Rockies, even down into parts of Idaho and Montana. Now, there is decent agreement about a system bringing snow across the northern United States, as you see here, around the middle of October, and that could bring snow as far east as northern Wisconsin. This isn't a major snow, but it could bring a few inches of accumulating snow. That's a little bit earlier than normal. Typically, we look to see snow in this portion of the country around the beginning of November.
And we've had really snowy and cold Octobers before, and that's meant absolutely nothing for the winter. It's been warm.
That's true.
So it doesn't necessarily affect that specifically at all. Now, we're seeing a lot of orange and red colors here on the sea surface map.
We are. So we look at the temperatures of the oceans around the entire globe, as this has an effect on what we could see here during the winter here in North America. One place we look is the equatorial Pacific, and right now, not too warm. It is a little warmer than average in spots, generally a neutral pattern, but we are trending closer to a more established El Nino, and we'll come back to the sea surface temperature map in just a moment, and you'll see just how warm it could get.
Now, there's very good agreement on this El Nino taking hold. It's not going to be super strong, but this is a graphic with a whole bunch of different global climate models that project a few months into the season, and you can see right here that it's very consistent with a weak El Nino developing. That's right around the 1 on the screen, and as far as the time goes, around that November time frame there, you can see it take hold. So we do expect a weaker El Nino this coming winter, and more sea surface temperature anomalies here. You can see a few different warm areas.
Yeah, so you can see it does warm up around the equatorial Pacific here later on in the wintertime, and we also have a bunch of warm air here up in the Gulf of Alaska, and it's been warm there for the past few winters. Additionally, we're looking at warm air along the eastern seaboard as well. That could have an impact on our winter. Another area you like to watch is the northern Atlantic Ocean, where blocking there could have a big impact, especially with weather across the East Coast. And we'll actually discuss that coming up in just a moment. Right now, let's take a look at a typical wintertime setup for El Nino, courtesy of NOAA. Generally, what you'll have here is a southern jet stream, also known as the Pineapple Express, bring wet and cool air into portions of the southern United States, across Texas, the Gulf Coast, and even into the southeastern United States. Now, that warm air we saw all bottled up here around Alaska, that's actually going to eject into the northwestern United States, perhaps even as far east as the Central Plains. North of that, you have the polar jet stream diving down, and that's going to bring some cooler air in the portions of the northeastern United States.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
and we could see a couple different changes really shove this cold air further south.
Absolutely.
Or really just sustain itself. So
absolutely, that's very true.
Let's take a look at what's called the North Atlantic Oscillation. And we could see a negative NAO develop. And that's this big area of high pressure here, this ridge of warm air up near Iceland and Greenland. And what that does is it blocks the weather pattern up. So systems try to come across and they have to slow down and normally get pushed up across the mid-Atlantic into the northeast as nor'easters. This type of a weather pattern also will push cooler air down across the Hudson Bay, all the way sourced into the North Pole across the eastern portion of the country. So a few things to monitor as we go through the next few months, but this Canadian long-range model is definitely hinting at this negative NAO developing. And one of the other things that we look at that is very important into crafting the winter forecast are analogs. We go back in the history books and look for other years that have similar type of patterns and trends as what we are seeing right now and over the past few months and really few years on a global weather scale. So we take years all the way back from the 50s and 70s and most recently even into the 2000s. Put them all together, mix them up in a pot, and here's what we come out with. Cooler weather than normal, starting from the Mississippi Valley out towards the east, maybe warmer up in towards New England, but the big story is going to be the warmth out west, possibly well above average temperatures across portions of the northwest. When we look at precipitation, where you're not going to have an active storm track and where it's going to be pretty warm with ridging, that's also where it's going to be on the dry side of things. And then very typical to that overall El Nino, that wetter pattern, that more unsettled pattern across the deep south, moving all the way up into the mid-Atlantic. So if we have that negative NAO, with that cold air in place and a couple systems moving northeast, we could see some significant snow, just like in 2009 and 2010 across portions of the mid-Atlantic. So a couple things there to really watch out for.
Absolutely. We also look at other global models like this here, the climate forecast system, and not everything is in perfect agreement with each other. As you can see here with this model, it has the warmest air really across the central United States this winter, whereas a moment ago we saw a lot of warm air up here in the Pacific Northwest. So where exactly that warm air ends up will also have an effect on where the cooler air ends up too. And we'll see some more things start to coming together here as we get into the next few weeks. And as you can see here, here's an entirely different model. This is a European model showing an entirely different idea.
Cool air, there we go, across the southeast, kind of what the analogs had as well. And we have a lot of warm temperatures across the north, back and towards the west, but they're not extremely warm compared to average. So from one model to the next, and there are several of them, they all have a little bit of a different trend. So it's about taking that mixture of models and the analogs and a bunch of other variables together to come out with our finalized winter forecast.
Absolutely, Brian. Now when we crunch all of this together, we get our preliminary winter outlook. Now this could change a little bit over the next few weeks as we look at different variables in the meantime. However, there is very good confidence in above average temperatures, especially across the Pacific Northwest. We could also see slightly above average temperatures from California, across portions of the northern and central plains, and even out as far east as the Great Lakes. Where's the cold air going to set up? Well, it's going to be in a little different spot than we usually see cold air during the winter. How about across the southeastern United States, places such as Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, Georgia, the Carolinas? You could see some of the coldest air in the country this winter. And that could even extend as far back as portions of Texas and even into Florida. So if you know any snowbirds, not looking like a very warm winter in Florida. Now when we look at precipitation, generally where there's warmer air, there's drier conditions. Where there's cooler air, there's wetter conditions, and we're seeing that right here. Drier than normal across portions of the Pacific Northwest and even out into the Central Plains. And then where we have the Pineapple Express coming across the southern United States, above average precip into the Gulf Coast, in the portions of Florida, and up the East Coast. In between, near average precipitation, but that doesn't mean you're going to see times where you have a bunch of rain or snow at once or times where you have just dry conditions for a couple of weeks. Now, if you are a snow and ice contractor and you're tired of looking at that smartphone app change on you every 3 to 4 hours and you want something more consistent and accurate, you need to give us a call. You need NeoWeather on your side. What you need is a team of meteorologists that are producing an accurate forecast around your location and operation. You can also give us a call 24/7 for support as well. And if you do sign up, we'll give you 20% off your first month of service. Give us a call or visit our website for more. Thank you for watching.